Welcome to Coach Fireside Chat, the podcast where we strip away the glamour and get straight to the heart of coaching. No scripts, no filters, just honest, raw conversations with coaches who are out there making a real impact. I'm Karl Sandland, your host and growth strategist for coaches. I work with coaches to help them build, scale, and create lasting impact in the industry. And in this podcast, I sit down with experienced coaches to deep dive into their journey, their struggles, their breakthroughs, and their unfiltered take on what it really means to be a coach. Whether you're an aspiring coach looking to grow your practice, or you're searching for the right coach to support your personal or professional transformation, this podcast is for you. No fluff, no sales pitches, just real talk about the coaching world from those who are doing the work and changing lives. So grab a seat by the fire and let's get into it. Welcome to today's episode. So today we're going to be diving into the world of mindset mastery and discovering how it goes beyond what we usually fixate on. We're going to be chatting about what mindset transformation really means, the difference between doing and being, and how common life issues pretty much boil down to just one root cause. So the guest for today is our expert on mindset transformation. He's a podcast host of not just one, but two shows. He runs his own online design studio. And when he's not busy with all of that, you'll find him supporting his favorite cricket team and football team and strumming his guitar, channeling his inner Noel Gallagher. After a career in investment banking left him somewhat disillusioned, he's turned to coaching, which helped him really uncover that root of his struggles, his low self-worth. Now he uses those insights to guide others on their journey of self-discovery and inner peace. So please welcome to the show, Vishad Doshi. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much for that intro. You covered pretty much my journey so far in a nutshell. So really pleased to be here for what's going to be a great conversation.
Brilliant. Delighted to have you on, my friend. So the first thing we're going to look at is understanding mindset transformation, because it's a term that's used by many people out there. So what I'm really interested to understand is what your perspective on it is. So mindset transformation, what does that mean to you? What's that in Vishad's world?
That's a great starting question, because the two words in the term mindset and transformation are, as you say, words that people have heard in and around, but might hear them and go, yeah, what does that really mean? It doesn't really resonate so much. So I'll start with the word mindset, right? So typically you might think a mindset is like it's an attitude, it's a behavior, it's the way you do things. And to be honest, there's no right or wrong answer in that. It's all of those things. I mean, I like to say it is it's the way you think about something. It's an established set of attitudes concerning culture, values, philosophy, your frame of mind, outlook, disposition, and there are all sorts of sources that you build it from. You know, your own experiences in your life, personalities or people that you look up to, both in your family and friends network or in the sporting or music world. Yeah. And these attitudes prevail from, let's say, patterns and behaviors in our lives, and they often come from our subconscious. You know, people have heard these stats that 95% of your daily runnings are from your subconscious. These are automatic, almost autopilot behaviors that you've picked up from somewhere and you've practiced for years and years and years, maybe without even realizing it. And it leads to some of the symptoms that you see today. So when it comes to mindset, people may fixate on that term fixed versus growth. Now, I'm not on a mission to change everyone's perception and get them thinking, no, that's wrong. But I want to say it's more than that, because I think even those terms, fixed and growth mindset, come with its own set of, well, if I've got a fixed mindset, is that a bad thing? Because people immediately go, fixed means you never move, you never do anything. You're rigid in your outlook and you're not open to change. Mm-hmm. But actually, sometimes that mindset serves us. It serves what I call our core human needs. And I'll go on to explain what that means a bit later on. But on the growth side of things, the growth mindset term, it sounds, oh, yeah, that's what I need. That's what's the right thing. That's what everybody else is doing. But again, what does that actually mean? Growth could mean a number of things, but to actually start with that, to say to someone, just have a growth mindset, what does that actually mean? So if I take another example of something more tangible, like a goal of losing weight, for example, readily someone might give you a diet plan or an exercise plan or a gym plan, something tangible, like a list of instructions that is more palatable to you. But if someone said to you, "Oh, develop a growth mindset," that's why I think it's a little bit of a mystery at the moment. So what I'm here to try and do is try and give some examples, analogies, stories in simple language that plays on the idea of a growth mindset. But I'm not just saying to you, just get a growth mindset, because in essence, anything you do is practice. It's not an overnight fix. It's not instant, and you're still going to make mistakes along the way. So this is what I mean when
a mistake is the other thing, because a mistake is just another point, a pivot at which you've learned something, right?
Exactly it. Exactly. But even that perspective, we all hear of it, mistakes are opportunities to learn for next time. And we all know that on some level. But it's now the practice of what does that look like for me? It doesn't mean, in my perspective, to just flip everything into a positive outlook. So what people may have seen as like toxic positivity. The people that say you're a warrior, you're a goddess, you're a lioness, you're a whatever S. Yeah. It's like, the sentiment's nice. I'm not going to have a pop at, purveyors of that or people that, use that. That's all well and good. But I'm here to say there's more to it than that, because often we find those kind of states are not sustainable. If it's a bit like a placebo. It might, help you out in the short term, but long term, there's still something underneath that we could take a look at. So that in a real wide nutshell is about mindset. Now, when it comes to transformation I call myself the mindset transformer, and not going to lie, a part of me was thinking of Optimus Prime when I came up with the title. Now, I'm not a massive Transformer fan, but look, he's a cool character, and I thought, you know what, Transformer, that sounds cool.
But can you do the voice? Can you get the voice that deep? That's the key.
Oh, no.
You're not a Prime, then. You're not a Prime.
Well, I've been told I can do accents and impressions pretty well, but I haven't. Prime, I would ruin it. I'd be like, just ruin it for people. So maybe another episode we'll see. Maybe. But no, the reason I picked the word transformation as opposed to things like coaching in that, it's like, well, to me, that word at first glance might promise like an instant change, like you're transforming. To use the Prime analogy, he turns from a lorry into this massive leader of the Autobots. But transformation doesn't have to be something as big as that. It can be something as small or as large as you want. Now, I want to make the emphasis that it's your transformation. It's not up for me to say what's your transformation. That's up to you. So it could be something like, I just want to argue less, which on the grand scheme of things might be a small thing, but for you, it's the next significant thing. If you made some progress with that, that's your transformation. It doesn't have to be, I want to change my career or get a relationship or get a car or whatever it might be. But I think at the moment, there may be a space where people go, right, I have to change on that big level for it to seem worthwhile, significant, because at the moment we're linking our self-worth to those big achievements. And I was having a conversation earlier with fellow coaches and indeed watching a podcast that when we tend to pick a goal or an outcome, we hang our self-worth on it subliminally because we feel that, first of all, that's what everybody else is doing. So there's safety in numbers type thing. But one of two things invariably happens. We either get the goal and go, is that it? So, for example, a new car. You might have fussed over it and, immediately got it. Like, this is my car I've always wanted. And then, you're worrying about, is it going to get a scratch? Is it going to need repair? Is it safe at night or whatever? And suddenly the car consumes you and you don't necessarily enjoy it as much. And then all of a sudden it's like, you look for the next thing. I'll go on holiday instead. So you just jump in from goal to goal without getting that real sense of fulfillment. And you get stuck in a maze because you're like, well, what do I actually want? Because we don't take the time to ask ourselves what we actually want. So transformation in that sense is you're looking to practice new behaviors to make a lasting change for you, however small or big that is. But I'm here to say you can expand that definition to what you define it as. Now, as I say, for some, it's a small change, a tweak. For some, it's a significant life change. So the way I package it all together in the mindset transformation journey is I say to people, like, in our space, people may have seen things like an I help statement. I help so-and-so achieve so-and-so. Absolutely fine. And usually that so-and-so bit is replaced with like a niche or a demographic. I help men of 25 to 50, professional, whatever. But I take all that out and I just replace it simply with the word you. Because you're the watcher or viewer or listener or reader. I'm trying to communicate to you. I'm taking the point that it doesn't matter where you are now. And as we'll go on to show, it comes down to the same thing. So all the symptoms that you're seeing come down to the one root cause. So the journey looks like things like, well, we talk about what does your transformation look like? What does your self-worth look like? We'll expand on that shortly, to then define what is your path to your own inner peace. But we don't just go, right, that's it. You defined it and that's it. We hang everything on that and we don't stop till we get it. Along the way, you could change your mind about what that is. And that's okay. At the moment, we're like, if I change my mind, I'm indecisive, I don't know what I want, I can't make my mind up, and that's a bad thing. In truth, we change our mind all the time. Now, it doesn't mean, right, we just change your mind about everything all the time, and that's okay. It's like with all this work, it's about striking a balance.
Yeah.
But it's giving yourself that room to give that space and time for that transformation to take effect. And what you find is your transformation actually is a natural byproduct of the practice that you're doing.
I love that. And yeah, going back to the concept of transformation, I mean, even in certain job roles like transformation director or project transformation lead and stuff like that, it's always trying to make you imagine this big thing, isn't it? I guess, like you say, that's part of the problem, really, because, I mean, my definition of big is not your definition of big, and the impact that I think that something's going to have on you might be completely off, and there might be something that has a massive impact on you that's different, or there might be 10 different small things that have a small impact, but they compound into a massive impact. So it almost starts getting you to question any word that you use for anything, doesn't it? Because it's not really the word, it's the feeling or meaning, right?
It's all interconnected, and language is a massive part of, well, partly my process and work, but it's also helpful to see it when we practice it for ourselves. Just take the time to have a look at, for example, so viewers and listeners might be listening for pointers, advice, or where you start with this. You could start by just going, see how you talk to yourself, and we all do. So what kind of judgments are we making? What kind of opinions are we having? What's our perspectives on things? We're not here to change it all. We just before we start to make a transformation, we want to get an idea of where are we at the moment, beyond like the symptoms that we see. People might be going, I hate my job. I'm single. Why can't I find anybody? I'm in a relationship, but I'm not happy. I struggle with anxiety. I struggle with money issues, health issues, whatever it might be. And as I say, we'll go on to explore those shortly. But just take a look to go, okay, what's the language you're using? Language is a key component of this, because the only person that will engage with the change is yourself. You can take, external sources and ideas and perspectives and this kind of thing, but the reasons you're not changing at the moment is that you don't believe in the change that you're wanting to do. And that's highlighted by your subconscious going, what are you doing? So this is what, if we take the example of New Year's, right? 31st of December, everyone, might have had a drink and celebrating the new year. What do people do? New Year's resolutions. Now, people can sort of debate whether they're effective or whatever or not, but surveys are done. People talk about them. Karl, what do you think is the most common resolution people make?
Oh, probably getting fit or going to the gym, stuff like that.
That's exactly it. Surveys have been done, and it's, I guess common practice or knowledge to say that, the most common resolution is, right, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to lose weight. So what do people do in January? They take a gym membership. They're going to go, right, I'm going to, You got things like veganuary or non-alcohol January or whatever it might be. Like, I'm going to drop that for a month, and all these plans, and it all looks good. And in the first few days, they're all like, enthused and, ready to go. And, mid-January, 3 times a week to the gym turns into 2 days. Coming end of January, like, once a week. And then you hit the end of January, like, I can't be asked. You don't go. Your equipment remains untouched. You're not waking up at 5 a.m. running around like Rocky anymore. But what do you tell yourself? Oh, I self-sabotaged. Well, that doesn't exist. Self-sabotage doesn't exist. Why? Think about the term. Again, back to language, right? Self-sabotage means that you willingly put paid to your own efforts to achieve something or not to achieve something. But did you set out to do that? Did you purposely go, right, I'm not going to do this so that I don't get this thing? You didn't go through with the change. Does not mean you have to have a go at yourself, because what does that mean? I'm not good enough. I'm indecisive. I can't do it. I can't stick to it. I've got no willpower, and I self-sabotaged. That's a clue, again, of the language we use. I'm not good enough. But when we look at it and go, actually, it could be a subconscious going, yeah, I see you waking up at 5 a.m. I see you trying to run like Rocky. I see you trying to do this plan. But why? What are you actually doing? Because it's not convinced of the change you're trying to do. Yeah. Now, two of the directives of the subconscious is to make sure, one, you don't die. So that's why you don't go walking into the middle of the road or, off a cliff all day. And number two, it's making sure it meets your core human needs, which I'll touch on later on. But basically, when you're trying to change something, it's going to go, right, I don't know what you're trying to do, so I'm going to sort of hold you back. And holding you back means like you don't go through with things. So you don't necessarily wake up, you make that effort. Even though you go, I'm going to wake up, set your alarm, do that and the other. But you just don't do it because your subconscious needs that proof of like, okay, what are you trying to do? So people go, okay, well, what do I do then? So it's like, well, ask yourself the question, why do you want to do this? Is the driver you? Or in the case of that resolution, is it because your best mate or your girlfriend or your partner or your boyfriend, whomever said, you're looking a bit sort of overweight there, you should lose a few pounds. So suddenly it's not you driving the change, it's someone else. It was an off the mark, off the cuff comment, but now you've taken it as, right, that's something I've got to implement a life change for. But the transformation comes through from asking yourself why, and you might find out that actually, no, I don't want to change it. I don't want to lose weight. That's okay. That in fact increases your self-worth a little because now you're making that decision. Now it's not to say stay like that forever, but it's now you can go, for example, okay, if I'm not running around like Rocky or whatever, what does my weight loss goal or whatever look like and entail? It could be start off slow with exercises. It could be that you try certain diets, but what I'm saying, the byproduct comes from the more you look into and give yourself the evidence of what you're trying to do by practicing, the more you'll buy into, your subconscious buys into the idea of what you're doing so that you actually take these next steps as a natural thing. And before you know it, you'll go, oh, I actually made some progress here. And you didn't have to actively think about it and have a fight with your head and heart voice to go, right, let's do this. So that's why I say it's a byproduct of the work, and that can come from wherever you're starting off from.
And it's a really interesting point. Well, many interesting points, but I guess the thing that sticks out for me is that self-forgiveness, or that awareness of the fact that your subconscious is just there to protect you. It's got your best interests at heart. It probably knows you better than you know you, because it's not listening to all the other shit that other people are putting onto you, all these other expectations that people are putting onto you. It knows you. So actually it may be holding you back, but is it really holding you back? Do you really want this thing that you're supposedly sabotaging but not? It's interesting, really, isn't it? The fact that you can think that, well, you've not done what you set out to do, but actually that's not the important thing. It's the meaning and the true association with what you want. And then there will be no having to convince your subconscious. There'll be no your subconscious talking you out of it, because if it's something that's truly part of you, it's not like you're trying to sell it to your subconscious. Then it's just going to happen, isn't it? If you truly want it, you'll do it. There must be part of you that doesn't want to do it if you don't do it, and your subconscious is actually helping you not screw up and not getting you to do something that you don't want to do. And yet people have it wired the complete inverse of that, don't they?
They come from the approach of success as a human being, or the way I should live my life is what I see out there. So I see it out there from other people, and therefore I should apply it because that's what I think I know as well. So I talk about, or not talk about, sorry, I use an analogy that my coach taught me of the train versus the scooter. So because imagine when you're born, we're all on a train. A train is on a fixed train track. It can't go off a train track. Along the way, we all stop at certain stations. So it's things like school, university, partner, job, family, kids, last stop, death. So we all go into fixed points at certain stations. We're all on the train. We're all going through the same way. But some of us go, actually, I don't want to go to that station. I want to go on to like travel or my own business or something else. But you can't because you feel like you're stuck on the train. And if you're not on that train, people are telling you, get back on the train because it's safer. This is what we all know. This is where we're all going.
The train's the dumb thing.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I also phrase it as like, it's a checklist in life. Have you done this by this point? And if you haven't, you better have a bloody good reason why not. So what we're doing, we're basically linking our self-worth to one or all of those achievements. And when we don't have them, we're not good enough, as dictated by not just other people, but by you. And therefore we fixate on trying to fix those points on the checklist. So if we don't like our job, well, at least I've got a job. I've got it ticked. It's better than not having a job. That's our perception. The scooter element comes from a scooter is not on a fixed train track. It's a one-person vehicle most of the time. It can go into more places than the train. And if you don't like where you're going on the scooter, you can easily turn around, which you can't do on a train. What my coach is saying is like, not many of us are brave enough to jump on the scooter to take our own journey and see what that involves. And it could mean that we go to the same stops along the way, fine. But it's giving yourself that flexibility to go, there's more to this than the train and the checklist. Again, I'm not saying to viewers and listeners to quit your job tomorrow or divorce your partner or sell your business, nothing like that. But it's giving yourself the time and the space of an opportunity to go, okay, what do I want? Now, many people might answer that question. I want the best for my kids and my partner. Very noble, all great. But I didn't ask that question. I said, what do you want? So people have dreams. People have ideas. And people go, no, I can't think of my dreams. That's unrealistic. I've got to provide. I've got to pay the mortgage, pay the bills, provide. Absolutely fine. But you can make space to make the changes that you want. So I'm not saying realize your fully fledged dream tomorrow or even over a short period. It's like, well, what does that look like? Can you start to explore it to go, okay, what does realizing my dream actually look like? And it's those practices and questions that actually raise your self-worth piece by piece. So I call your self-worth, it's like if you've ever played like games like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat.
Of course.
Or
in the arcades originally.
Right. So, you'll know that if your character gets hit, you've got a health bar. And if you get hit, your health bar goes down a bit. Liken that to your self-worth. Every time you receive what I call a programming experience, which we'll go into, there's a lot I'm promising, so I'm hoping I'll cover it all.
I've got a list of about 17 things you were going to go into.
Probably. Sounds about right. But what I'm saying is that every experience we come across, whether it's been in our childhood to adolescence to even now, any program experience that negatively impacts us nudges our self-worth bar down a bit. And at the moment we might be coming from a very low place, like one more hit and we could be done for, like in the game. But these little practices, by asking questions, giving ourselves the time, giving ourselves the space to practice, raises it a little bit, little by little. And it's those things that add up to make your own transformation, knowing that there'll be changes of mind along the way, deciding what that looks like for you. So an example I'd like to run through is like the space of doing versus being. So I know that was one of the discussion points that would lead into, but I think this is a point where I might look to share that. So I have an example lined up here. So um, I'll just start with that. So first of all, people are like, well, what is doing versus being? Well, essentially, it's another, again, sort of bit more detail to explain why efforts towards any goal you pick might not be sticking. So the doing perspective is, well, as it says, is what you do. It's the actions you take. It's the words you say towards, the challenge, the issue, the goal. And the being is the underlying perspectives, worldview, behaviors, patterns, and thoughts. So basically, the two aren't in sync at the moment when you're trying out things. So an example of this is like, let's say, so you take the goal of somebody that said, I want to be more relaxed and less stressed. That's all they say. That's their transformation. That's the thing they want to go for. Okay, great. So they do their own research, might ask people's opinions, and they get the message back of like, do things like meditate and do yoga and journal. Again, I'm not vilifying those practices, all well and good, all very useful, but that's what they think. Okay, that's what I'll do then. So that's the doing level. That's what they do. Okay, so they kick off. They do some meditation, try some yoga out, get some journaling going, and they make a bit of progress, and then they stop going, I've got the feeling I should be doing something more productive here. So they sort of pause their efforts and go, is this enough to meet the goal or achieve the goal I set out in the first place? Mm-hmm. Well, what they've done is they've only addressed the doing level, but they've not looked at the being level. But if you think about the goal itself, what it's trying to achieve and what you're doing at the moment, it's basically saying that, right, in your life, you've created this shell or persona that's all about taking action, pushing on, and moving. Always, no, the phrase is like always on the go and always at it and gives 100%, all nice sounding terms, is always there, reliable, but what does that mean? You keep giving. So in a job, it might be that you work late hours, you take on that extra bit of work, you might even work a weekend here and there, all for like, progression or whatever. But what does that create? You then struggle. You can't keep up with it. You go, I hate my job. This is too long. I don't get enough free time. You start to burn out. But even underneath that, it's basically you saying, I feel I've got to prove myself in pretty much every situation I face. So if you're, happen to be the last person in the office on an evening, you think, oh, I'm going to get recognized or this looks good. But you're trying to prove yourself to others that like, this is my worth. Sort of, it's almost kind of like, please accept me type thing. So whereas you started with the goal of, I want to be more relaxed and less stressed, the underlier is like, well, that's because you've created the shell about struggling on and trying to prove to yourself. So the next part to say is, right, if I did actually stop and take a breath for a second, you then develop a sense of guilt because you're used to just working and working all the time. So you get the guilt from not working hard. And that guilt is something you've picked up on in your programming experiences from childhood up, where it's like, you've always got to work. You've always got to be busy, got to keep working, got to make sure you're employed. So it's that thing of like, oh, I can never stop then. I've always got to be go, go, go. So to sum up, the doing problem is the stress, the fatigue, the burnout, but the being problem is that unconscious need to struggle. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much so. And I think that need to struggle is well, it's just there, isn't it? We do feel that is the case. It's society, our experiences, how we've been brought up, the education system has made us believe that we're on this train. And how dare we step off it? If we step off it, it's not because we've got courage and we're doing the right thing. It's, how do I get back onto the train? Oh my God, I've fallen off it. I need to get back onto it again. I had a coaching call not long before this, actually, without going into the full detail. This client has built up certain expectations of what it means in her life now to be a mother with all the responsibilities versus when she had freedom and something at the age of 22. And we did quite a bit of work on that comparison and analysis and what it means and which part of her life she feels better about now. And we even did and what would you tell your 18-year-old self, your 22-year-old self? And she said, oh God, I'd be so proud about this and this, that, and the other. And it was almost unpicking and getting her to reframe herself that it's okay what you are now. You've made these choices, and don't forget, you are here because of choices you made, and that's not a bad thing. If they were bad choices, you'd have made different ones to put you on the path that you then should be on, that's linked to with your true core. So, there was a lot of deep work on making her actually really realize and appreciate and stop comparing to her former self, like nearly 10 years ago. Because again, that had gone slightly off alignment. She believed that she should have a certain amount of freedom and she should be able to do her own thing. And it's like, well, says what? You've got children. Is it not okay that you've brought lives into the world and that you're enjoying and loving being a parent? Or, well, no, because then I should have time for myself still, and I never feel like I have, and I'm feel guilty when I don't, when I do have time to myself. And it's like, well, why? Why are you telling yourself to feel guilty? There were those sorts of conversations going on, which
Right.
point
And
us back to that same point, doesn't it?
well, it's a great point you pick up on there, because beyond the symptoms lies our understanding of emotions. I shouldn't feel like this. So we might share what we're feeling, emotions wise, but it leads on to judgments about those. So things like we feel it's not acceptable to feel things like guilt and embarrassment and frustration, because it should be something else. We don't want to fixate on that. Again, I think it's back to what I was saying about toxic positivity. We just brush over that and go, don't worry about that. Just fixate on something else. But yeah, you're exactly right there. Like, the transformations can often start with the question of why. And the only person that can answer it is yourself. Now, it's not to say, right, we let our hands go and right, off you go. But I use this phrase a lot. You have the answers already. They might not be readily accessible. I cite that these are often in your shadow, which is your people call it a dark side. That's fine. It's the place where you've put unprocessed experiences, suppressed traumas, suppressed emotions, and we shy away from it because it's bloody hard to process this stuff. It's there in the first place to protect ourselves, but the answers tend to be in there, and we build up to that in the work that I do. Again, we're not doing it to be controversial. We're not doing it to sort of shock people. We're not doing it to shame people, but it's to go that if you're going to look beyond symptoms and address that root cause, that's the level we'd like to get to, because we want to make these lasting changes, right? So we want to get away from in that example, where I went through that, actually the fatigue, the burnout is a symptom of having to struggle on and on, because associated that is the guilt that you've picked up from not working hard. That guilt has come from your programming experience when you were younger. So again, I'm not blaming parents here, and it's not a blame game, but it's like, there's your clue. You've got this idea that it's not okay, it's not acceptable for you to take a breath. That's where we start off from. So it's just untwining those patterns and behaviors that we're just running on autopilot at the moment. So doing versus being is just a little example I have, just to give people the idea that look beyond what you see, basically.
I guess links to why there are so many people who make the choices and convince themselves that they've got to head towards burnout. I mean, and it is a case of convincing yourself, isn't it? That's the key thing. You've got to look deeper as to, well, what is it I want and why? What's important to me? And why do I struggle so much to do this? Well, probably because your subconscious is helping you and almost guiding you and saying, stop trying to do this shit you're not connected with, has no real meaning or purpose in your life. Because ultimately, if we're in that sort of peak state or that flow state where we're making decisions based on what truly means something to us, then it is actually going to flow and it is going to be easier. It's not going to be as difficult, is it? We're not going to come up as many questioning ourselves or roadblocks or challenges. And that's not to say that life's just dead easy if you get it right. But if you're following what you want and your true passion and what has purpose and meaning for you, then enjoying that journey and enjoying that ride is naturally going to make it a smoother, easier ride, right?
100%. And we all have those ideas and, you know, things that we're connected to, passions, you know, things that we'd rather be doing. But we're so fixated on the everyday, the checklist. I've got to provide, I've got to do this. But then there are always clues that you pick up in conversations, in cues, to go, yeah, I'm not enjoying this anymore. You know, I want to do something. See, there's just those little signs. Now, it's no good me saying, yeah, no, act upon that and do that. You know, I remark sometimes a lot where, you know, I call these now ego battles. I'm not one to go, you're right, I'm wrong, or vice versa. It's more, that's your ego talking, it tends to be. But I remark sometimes that when people go, no, you should be doing this, or you should be doing that, I'm like, according to?
Yeah, based
what?
on what?
Right. And what they can't get their head around is if they say something to you that you should do, and you're like, yeah, maybe. But but they don't get their head around that response of like, but you should be doing this. You know, where I don't know whether it's a, you know, a diet change or looking for your partner or whatever it might be. It's like, well, this is the point. You can give me all the pointers, and it sounds beneficial, makes sense, and you know, it all stands up. But until your own system goes, yeah, okay, I know this. I know what this looks like for me. It's not going to take a spark from somebody else. It'll be your own. So that, and people go, but what does that look like? It's like, this is the tricky bit to articulate, because it'll come for you if you put that time and space to work that out for yourself. So I mean things like, you might, you know, let's say you want to practice a new skill, say a new instrument, or you know, something technical, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. You could look into all the how-to videos, the what to do, etc. There's some things you resonate with, some things that make sense, some things you won't do, and go like, what's going on there? And you might practice something that you're like, okay, that's easy for me, enough for me to do. That's one little step up you've made. Now it's up to you to then go, do you repeat that step? Do you go, I want to do another step? Do you know, that's what it will look like to you. And then you might come along the way facing obstacles and challenges, going, I don't know about this. That's fine. That's another opportunity to ask yourself, going, okay, do you actually want this? And if you don't, that's okay. It is not permission to just try anything haphazardly in there. Yeah. But the responsibility lies with you. So I know we're jumping the schedule a bit here on the stuff I want to talk about. So I created something a while ago, what I call like the 15 guidelines of mindset transformation. And what I'd like to offer your audience, Carla, is that if people would you know, be up for it, I'm willing to do a free workshop where I expand and talk about the guide essentially. So yeah, if that's of interest, do let me know. I'm happy to do that. But one, you know, the first principle I just like, the guideline I should say to mention, is that you are only responsible for yourself. Take radical responsibility for yourself. And that in itself is very counterintuitive, because at the moment we have the perspective of we do things for other people, or other people impacted me. So it's things like, oh, I didn't get this result because of he, she, they, it. It's something or one else. No. Another perspective is that, what could you have done in the situation that was your own responsibility? Again, that's counterintuitive, because like, well, I did it for somebody else. Like, yeah, that's the point. When you're looking to do it for someone else, that's you trying to supplicate, validate, and get that acceptance. It's your self-worth being hung out to dry again. But when you take your own responsibility, see the results it can give you. Now, that doesn't mean you take responsibility on behalf of someone else. So take the blame or go, yeah, that was my fault. No. It's about you going, okay, take a relationship, for example. Any relationship, your personal, your family, your sibling, your colleague, or whomever. as long as you can take your own responsibility for what you input into the relationship, so whether that's the communication, the behaviors, the patterns, etc., that's all you can do. You'd like it reciprocated. So, if you did a nice gesture, for example, you might want to be reciprocated with thanks or maybe a favor back or whatever it might be. But that's not in your responsibility. You think that, if I did this, they're going to like me or they're going to do something for me. But more often than not, that doesn't happen like that. You'd like it to. But if we can get into the practice of going, no, the only thing I can be responsible for is myself. And that guideline can take a while to implement because it's counterintuitive to what we've experienced so far. But, my coach gave me a great example while we're doing this is that people might go, yeah, but, surely other things and people and stuff impact you. So how can we be responsible for that? It's like, well, put it this way. He goes, imagine you're with a circle of your friends, right? And one of them produces their pet spider out in their hand. Now, one of your friends might be arachnophobic, screams their head off and runs a mile. Mm-hmm. Another one shudders because they're not comfortable around creepy crawlies, but they stand their ground. They're a bit uncomfortable, but, they hold their ground. Another one of your friends loves animals, loves pets, and wants to sort of hold the spider and check it out, that kind of thing. So 3 different reactions from 3 different people from the same stimulus. So was it the spider causing the reaction or the person itself being responsible for their own reaction? So if you apply this to things like emotions work, is it the emotion or is it what you think about the emotion? But there's another clue to go, okay, what kind of emotions, for example, am I repressing? Now, I realize I'm jumping all over the place a little bit here, but the point about responsibility is that when we look to practice those kind of things by going, okay, I can take my own responsibility for what is going on. Again, not a blame game. We're not going to blame ourselves if it doesn't go right or this kind of thing. It's realizing that I'd like, no matter how much I think of it, I'm not responsible for what they say, do, think, or behave. And another example my coach gave me to highlight all this is like, imagine somebody invited you to their engagement party, say, and you can't make it for whatever reason, right? Mm-hmm. Both the bride and groom. The bride gets offended that you're not turning up, whereas the groom is like, they're disappointed, but he'll get over it. It's not a massive thing. So again, same thing, 2 different behaviors from 2 different people that you're not responsible for. So we might sit there and go, oh yeah, but they're going to get offended if I don't turn up. So what do? We sometimes we do things that we don't like doing, like, I'll go because of my partner and I'll show my face, right? There's a clue again. You're doing things because you think it will please the other person, but that's not your responsibility. And again, that's counterintuitive because you don't want to let people down. You don't want to offend them. Why? Because we've got a people pleaser character in our cast. Oh, I better not rock the boat and do things that are going to make me look good. Where's that need being driven from? Do you see what I mean? It all interlinks, smallest things. And again, my coach was quick to point out, saying this is not permission for us just to trample on people's lives and go, I'm not responsible for you lot, sod you. No, it's again getting that practice. Like the best way he said it was, think of it this way, because we want to get to a place where we can say what we mean without being mean. So we do things from our own perspective and genuine thought. So if we don't want to turn up to something, it's like, yeah, do you know what? I'm gonna not turn up. You don't have to make an excuse or that kind of thing because of, oh shit, they're gonna think whatever. That's not your responsibility. It's just little things like that as a behavioral change that we try and embed and practice. And that's going to look different to you. I'm not saying to people, right, go and sod every invitation you get. It's just try and see what that looks like for you. So next time, yeah, it might be if you don't fancy going somewhere, just say so. It's just small things.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, the person who's going to win from that is yourself. because you're giving
Yeah.
yourself permission to do what you do want and to not do what you don't want to do. You're not people pleasing anymore. Although to the rest of the world, your friends, your family, everybody else, like you say, it is going to potentially seem like you're being rude, but you've got to be super strong to that whole, well, actually, that's on them. An invite does not mean it's an order to come. It's meant to be a choice. And I'm picking one of the 50% options you gave me. so don't take friggin' offense. And yet we don't see it that way. We get wedding invites and we're thinking, oh God, how are we going to tell them? Going through that turmoil of how are they going to judge me? And then how's that going to make me feel about myself? Because that's all
100%.
it is. That is literally all it is, isn't it? And it's like, if you can shortcut that, forget that crap and just think, well, what's going to make me most happy? Doing something that's then going to affect my self-worth in a negative way, or doing what I want to do, which can only affect my self-worth in a positive way. So stuff the rest of the world, do what I want to do, and it will fill my cup up, not take out of it.
Yeah, and one thing I'd just like to add as a footnote here, again, this is not about being a rebel or not giving a fuck about everybody else. It's more to go, these are the little clues that actually mean something else. Again, I don't mean microanalyze everything you're doing. If you want to, that's up to you. But it's more about what every behavior in a pattern has something behind it. A lot of my work is based on pretty much everything we do is based on meeting one or more of our core human needs. Mm-hmm. But before we get there, we're like, okay, what's actually going on at the moment? And these are just the clues that, I can't go into your life and pick up your clues. You're the one experiencing them. That's what I mean here. But what I mean is it just goes beyond, right, set a goal, go after the goal, get the goal or not get the goal. There's more to it than that.
Yeah. And change your mind if you want. It's okay to change your mind.
Exactly.
It's okay to pivot, to do different things, to decide it's not for you after all. It's just okay to do whatever you want to do that actually makes you happy and brings you joy and fulfillment.
Yeah, well, we just don't engage in it, don't we? We tend to think of ourselves last often because, we're doing things for someone else, or we're doing things to make ourselves not look short in other people's eyes. We give up things like maybe our free time or our energy and even maybe our money, etc., just to go, well, I've got to keep them sweet type thing. And look, this is where we end up in things like, well, actually, I don't like this shit that I'm doing. Or even, taking it further, like, I don't know now where to go or what to do type thing. And, I've mentioned it often enough, so I might as well dig into it now if you'd like about, I come from the perspective of wherever you are in life, in terms of area, challenge, issue, goal, it will map itself down to low self-worth. No problem.
But talk us through it though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the visual I've made is that along the top of the visual, I have a series of common challenges and areas. So it's things like anxiety, worry or stress, anger, depression, low self-esteem, feeling lost, stuck or unfulfilled, addictions, weight issues, money, health issues, relationships, and career change. So typical, I guess, headline symptoms that we see in our lives in various forms, right? Mm-hmm. So what I've done is I've mapped every one of these symptoms down to a reason that links to your self-worth. So I'll pick... Actually, do you want to pick one? Dig into that.
So yeah, unhappy at work, so unfulfilled in your job.
Okay, so career change.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so the link to self-worth, or the way we want to think about that here, is that we feel the unfulfillment in our career because we don't want to be actually doing the job that we're doing. Again, similar themes that what we've touched upon, so might seem readily even more obvious, but we're basically wanting to be what we imagine ourselves to be rather than the thing we are. So it's things like, you might be sitting at work, daydreaming, going, I wish I was doing something else. Not I wish I was on holiday. That's a common thing. That's what it's basically saying, I don't want to be doing this. And your default is like, I just want to do nothing. I want to just be on holiday and laze about or whatever. But the way to kick off from there is like, what do you want to be doing instead? Again, people might think, well, you're repeating yourself. That's the point. There's no magic trick here. There's no hidden secret. The question here is like, what is it you want to do? So if I speak about myself, actually, from my journey of being investment banking, as I said, I came into investment banking not wanting or ever wanting to be the next Wolf of Wall Street. I came out of university with an economics degree. I got a graduate place on a graduate scheme at the world's supposed biggest investment bank, Goldman Sachs. I had no idea of the pedigree or the size of the name of the bank, but as soon as I told people I'm going to work, they're like, "Oh wow, you're working at Goldman's," and like, yeah. I just wanted to just do a job and a good job wherever I was. Right? It wasn't like, right, I'm in investment banking and none of that. I worked my way up through the role, going into a position of leadership and management and being successful and this kind of thing. But as time wore on, it suddenly became a space where it was no longer enough to do your job well. You always had to be seen to be doing an initiative, a project, something on top of what you're doing, because it became clear that you had to get involved in office politics and all that crap that comes with it. And I didn't readily pick up on those signals until too late, because my need for certainty and control was being met. So I mentioned needs. I'll mention them now, right? So everything we do is geared towards meeting 4 core human needs. So you've got certainty and control, you've got uncertainty and variety, significance and ego, and love and connection. And then sort of, I guess, around it, you've got personal growth and contribution to the wider world, right? You've also got practical needs. So alongside human needs, you've got practical needs. So things like, what does whatever you're doing, whatever behavior, enable you to be or do or realize, right? So in my job, it's like, right, I know it might be shit sometimes, but that's the point. I know it's shit. So I'm actually certain of that. So there's my need for certainty and control being met. You see what I mean? There, it's like, I know it's crap, but if I went somewhere else, I don't know how good or bad it might be. But that's my need for uncertainty and variety. But my need for certainty and control, which is often the case, is the strongest need. So it's like, it might be shit, but you know what? It might get better. So it's my subconscious going, I don't know what changing your job might look like. Because, I probably made my move too late. I burnt out and ended up changing role because of circumstance. They moved a lot of our division to somewhere else. It's like, well, you have to make that change now. But for me, it's like when I look at career change and self-worth, I saw this now. It's like I'm hanging my self-worth on what I do, and I've realized that it's been there for a while. So it was things like, I would take my work home with me, both from an actual doing perspective. So it's things like, when you reach a certain level of seniority, they'd give you the powers that be gave you a BlackBerry. You didn't have to ask for one. You just got, congratulations, your BlackBerry. Like, I don't want one. No, you got to have it. You're a manager. Right. And I found myself buying into that bloody attitude. I'd be on the train home. I'd still be pissing about on, answering email. And I'd wake up in the morning and the first thing I do is check. I'm like, why am I doing this shit? I'd just stress myself out for no reason. I'd log on a weekend because I'd be stressed about what might happen on a Monday. So trying to fight before it gets too much of a problem. So I'm like, but then I caught myself going, why the fuck am I doing this? I'm just making rich twats more rich than they should be. It wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't, I could see my need for certainty was getting met. That's fine. But now it's like, I could feel my need for things like significance not being there because you weren't being treated like a human being. It was like very robotic, and people go, yeah, but that's just banky for you, isn't it? If you can't hack it. Like, yeah, absolutely right. I'm not going to say otherwise. But my point is, it became a very personal thing. It's like, okay, now what do I want to do? And truth is, I didn't know. If I knew, I would have done it maybe sooner. Now, a part of me said, yeah, why didn't I just go and become the next Noel? Pick up my guitar and go and find an album deal and off you go. I didn't convince myself enough that that's exactly what I wanted to do. So when it came to that sort of juncture of, I changed role, like what what's next for me, I realized, okay, I don't want to go into another similar role. So it's like, it feels like my time in finance is done. And coaching came along as something that first of all fitted with my values, of trying to help people, work for myself, listening, and, being creative. My journey then built as to, finding my coach. Again, came through my football team, just happened to, come through in that regard. And the more I bought into that option, the more clear it became. And, results, as they came as a byproduct. So first of all, it was like, my workplace gave us like access to like a career service. So that's why I got introduced to coaching. So something we went, okay, this seems good. So there's a clue. Now what am I next going to do about it? So I went and took one of those like introductory taster course thingies in London. What's it like to be a coach? And And at that point I said, okay, that's cool. But I didn't take the next step from there because I said, no, I'll come back to it because I had other things going on in my life at that point. It came back into the fray, as I said, when I found my coach through my football team, and I actually took that step to receive coaching from him. I didn't go to him with a challenge, a goal, etc. Mm-hmm. But, after we finished working together, he said, look, I've shown you everything I know. There's nothing to stop you going out and doing the same and sort of being a coach, is what I kind of went to him by. So every step of the way, I checked in with myself going, okay, what does this look like? And, it's literally a conversation with yourself. It's asking you questions. What does that look like? And accepting and almost meeting how you feel. So it's things like, I can't afford that. Yeah, you might have people. Here's the thing. People call it a money mindset. No, it's a legitimate question. If you don't have, especially nowadays, you don't have, if you don't feel you have that perspective or money to throw at something, that's fine. I'm not one to go, yeah, you should be able to spend freely on yourself and invest in yourself. And it's like, yeah, but that's such an individual decision. It's not about you trying to ram it down people going, yeah, but it doesn't cost that much. It doesn't. That's for that person to decide. You can give them the perspective of like, look, this might help you. This is that. But we can't. I don't think we should go into that realm of like, no, this isn't actually expensive, and you should let them decide that. And that's what your subconscious do all the way, saying, you sure about that? Like, you want to do that, and this might be here. There's a question only that you can answer. So to answer it in your own way of like the career change where you are, is at the moment we feel like, look, we want to, we hate our jobs, might hate our boss. We want to make a change. We don't feel brave enough to step like, because we're getting our needs met. But the reason we're staying around is that like, I don't know what the change is going to look like because of the uncertainty involved. And the link to low self-worth comes from like, I don't feel good enough to make that leap of faith for myself. And that might not even mean changing your career. And I've mentioned career change, but it could mean like a micro behavior at work. So just to finish on this example, I know I'm going on a bit, but my coach and I spoke about this behavior I was seeing at work where I used to get wound up by people CCing me on big email chains without any sense of handover. So it'd be like CCing Vishad, thanks. So I'd be in the middle of something, an email pop up, and there'd be no detail on it apart from those 3 words. Might be a whole big chain, a lot of management on it, and a big chain. I'm like, so now I've got to drop what I was doing, read what this thing is. Is it for me? Do I need to do something? Are they asking me for something? What is it? And it would piss me off. And it'd be like, you're disturbing my workflow. And it's like, if I didn't do anything about it, someone might pick up on it. And it would, do you know what I mean? It just felt, it stressed me out. It made me anxious and this kind of thing. So my coach and I dug into it going, okay, so what is it about it that pisses you off? So we determined that it's the fact that someone's just seemingly just thrown the work to someone else. Go on, you take care of it. Okay, so we explored that further. What does that mean? It's like, well, it just looks like they're lazy. They're not bothered to ask or even add a bit of detail. It's just very like, it just appeared lazy. They've just chucked their work. And he goes, okay, why is being lazy in that context not a good thing? Again, we dug into it and going, it's because I've got the belief that I wouldn't do that. I might think I want to do that, saying, okay, I'll just chuck my work everywhere in that same manner.
Mm-hmm.
Dig into it further. He goes, it's because you've got the belief at the moment that being lazy isn't acceptable, but you want to be lazy as well. So actually, there's a little bit of jealousy afoot here because someone's displaying a behavior that you're trying hard to suppress. Now, that took me a little while to go, oh, fuck, hang on. Because what you were saying is precisely that fact that of you want to do the same thing, but you're like, no, I can't do that. That's just not going to look good. That's not in my values, behaviors, da, da, da. But someone else is just like, yeah, fuck it, I'll do it. You want to do the same thing. So I said, okay, so what do I do then? It's like, what's the next step? It's like, okay, so we've recognized what the actual route is. That's put our self-worth up a bit. Because like, okay, I recognize that it's actually okay to be lazy, but I'm not going to take the practical step of doing the same thing back because that's not going to lead me anywhere. So he said, try this as a practical step, right? He goes, next time somebody does that, reply to them and saying, hi, it's not clear to me what you want me to do with this email. Going forward, if I receive such an email, I won't be taking any action. Now, immediately I went, I can't do that. That's going to get escalated and people are going to complain. And da, da, da. He said, yeah, they might do. Or they might also go, actually, do you know what? Thanks for letting me know. I'll add some context and here's what it is. Because he goes, look, with any new behavior that we're trying to do, we might receive some pushback from everybody because other people aren't going to get the change that we're trying to do for ourselves. That's with any behavior. We'll make a mistake, it might not work, we'll tweak it out but it gives us an idea of what to do on a small behavior that we're seeing that pisses us off at what it actually means for us. So at the moment, we might receive the same email and go, fucking hell, throw up and, get stressed and get anxious and have email wars and chains. For what? Dig into it. What does that actually mean? So ultimately going back to the idea of career change is like, well, we don't feel we're good enough because we're afraid of the changes that we want to make in the career and especially what we don't want to go on to do. It actually echoes a lot of the points you're making before of like, this is going to look bad to people. This is not going to look good for me. What is this going to look like? It's the fear of uncertainty. And that's absolutely a valid perception and fear kind of thing. But we get hung up in those symptoms because it's like, it's a sign that I should be doing something else, but I don't know what. But I just get fixated in, I hate my job and I hate that. So why aren't I changing then? Now, people might be braver nowadays to step into another job. That's cool. That's fine. But who knows whether they then hop onto another job after a period of time. But it's just, as I say, an example of what that looks like at the moment and what could be underneath it. And that's essentially a core part of the work we do of like what lies beneath the thing you say that you want. I'm not here to go, right, you're completely wrong and this is what you should do. Because it could mean that actually after we finish working together, a career change is actually something that you would like to do. Now, this is where, the work of a career coach or whomever would help you accentuate that change because they've got the know-how, maybe the interview skills or the CV brushing up or blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying that you shouldn't go to them even in the first place. What I'm saying is that once you do this kind of work, you're now making these decisions from a higher self-worth perspective. Whereas you're trying to go right, because often we get the perspective of like, well, if I want to, fix my relationship or change my career, why would I not just hire a relationship coach or a career coach? Yeah, why not? I'm not saying don't. What I'm saying is this work can help you apply it to even more than what you think you're addressing, because it all comes down to saying that it's all interlinked. So there's basically space for everybody.
Because at the end of the day, ultimately, every decision you make and every action you decide to take is coming back to your self-worth. It's how much you decide to let it drive, I guess, to a certain extent, that's the key thing, isn't it?
That's right. And the distinction of low self-worth is that, do you know what? We might not even know we've got low self-worth in the first place. Why? Because we shy away from terms that sound a bit like we're going towards like maybe the depression or that kind of side, because we've got the perception that depression is a dark, difficult place, even though all the stats are pointing in the wrong direction nowadays. And there is luckily more discussion, awareness being raised a bit more. But when people say low self-worth, what? it's a bit of an alien concept. But when you drill into it, it's like, this is what these signals might be hinting at. And again, this is not to shame you or to shock you into change or anything like that. It's just to go, this is just where it starts from, and it's all interlinked. And once we get there, that's where you kind of set yourself the base to look to make the changes you want.
It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, my friend. And thank you, everybody, for joining myself and Vishad today. Remember that true transformation is with understanding and accepting yourself. So again, think of Vishad's analogy of the train. It's like, don't get on the train and then get off at a stop and think you've got to get back on the train. You decide whether you go on the scooter with no sat-nav and whether that's the path you should be on. So if you're ready to take that first step, the best way of contacting you is that through your website or social media?
Yeah, I mean, you'll find me on all the social medias at Inner Peace Walker, all one word. If you want to go to innerpeacewalker.com/links, then it's basically my equivalent of a link tree. It's got all your, all my shows, social media channels, product areas, all this kind of thing. You're more than welcome to reach out and get more details.
Brilliant. Thank you very much again, Vishad. Thank you, everybody. Shall see you next time.
See you later.
Now.
That's it for this episode of Coach Fireside Chat. If you found value in today's episode, please be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an insight-packed conversation. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe for more real talk on coaching. And don't stop there. Check out other fantastic episodes where I sit down with more incredible coaches who are out there making a real impact. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.